Welcome to Turtle Talk. This is Morgan's story and the family's journey. I'm Craig, and
I'm Michelle. Welcome.
welcome back. In the last episode, we told you about the slideshow. This is another one. Both of them will be on the YouTube channel as their own videos. And when we were last speaking, we were talking about therapy. We're still at the rehab facility.
Yeah, still at rehab. We had talked a lot about, speech and what goals were. All these goals are important to being able to stay. They need to set goals. Morgan needs to meet these goals in order for insurance to continue to say, yes, Morgan can stay.
Right.
So those were pretty critical. We learned a lot of stuff with it that in therapy. Tom and I learned a lot about therapy. We learned that we needed to educate ourselves because I thought this would be a fast recovery, and it's not.
Well,
And
you asked a lot of questions. Why this? Why are we doing this?
we did ask a lot of questions, and we finally started reading articles and researching different treatment methods. And if the therapist had said, hey, we're thinking about this or that, we'd immediately go research it so we would have input into her treatment plan. Knowing Morgan, not all treatments are created equal, not all therapies are created equal, and not all therapies and treatments are perfect for everyone. So by us learning about these different things, we were able to say, this might not work for Morgan, and this is why. Because A, she's stubborn and didn't like baseball, or, she's very stubborn. And I really appreciated her main speech and PT and OT for really, truly thinking outside the box. And also being able to pick up on what we were laying down with Morgan, that, hey, Morgan's very energetic. She likes this. She likes food. And they would incorporate her likes into her therapy plan. So we did really, really appreciate that. Like with speech, the other key things for vocal language was deep breathing. It was quite comical that, we'd tell Morgan to take a breath, and then the therapist would push on her stomach to help force that air to come out. And sometimes with that, we get sounds. Well, the more she did it, the more sounds we would get. It was teaching Morgan, though, that she has to make the air come out that way without our assistance. So that's another thing that throughout time, she's making these sounds while the therapist is pushing, but now she's able to make these sounds without anybody pushing. But it all is a very slow process. They even tried her face. She always kept her lips tight. And so these jaw muscles got really tight, which I imagine made her jawbone socket tight. So they did a facial stim on her, with a TENS unit type thing. I don't know exactly that it was a TENS unit, but something similar. And boy, they put that on, and she did not like that at all. We got to see some very colorful facial expressions on doing the facial stim. I do think, though, that it did help her, but it was not something she liked. Same with the serial casting.
Sure.
She hated that serial casting, and she was very agitated for days after, but at the time and what we knew, it was necessary.
Right.
So
Therapy is a moving target with this one.
It is, and what we've come to learn is with any brain injury, no two are alike. There is no roadmap, and there's just no way of knowing. It's all trial and error, and what are they going to respond to?
More like guardrails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guardrails is a great example.
Yeah.
You know,
Just bribe her with chocolate cake
chocolate cake all the time.
all the time.
Yeah,
Everything.
we still bribe her.
Yeah.
When I want her to do something, we still bribe her. So speech worked with the language skills and the switches, and OT worked with the core strength and arm movements, neck strength and stuff. Then we have PT. Physical therapy worked with her trunk and her legs, standing, bicycling. We spent a lot of time in this thing called a standing frame. It's like a chair with a lap tray and it stands up, but there's all these safety mechanisms, to keep the legs locked in where they're supposed to, keep chest pads so she can't flop out, things like that. Just building those leg muscles, which you don't realize how important it is that you stand every day, because like even her intestinal system,
Sure.
if you don't stand, things might not work as they're supposed to. So we were grateful for that, because that helped not just her leg strength, but it helped her whole digestive system, her intestinal system. Her arms had to be up on the tray, so then they could do stuff like put baby oil on there so she could move her arms back and forth freely. Things that kind of help take gravity or restrictions out of the way. They also there was a picture a hospital bed that's divided. And so your back to your waist is on the upper piece, and then they take the piece from your waist to your knees out. And so then the bed slides up and down. Your feet are on a platform and it slides up and down. It's called a Moveo. And they do squats on it, but you can do it at a flat angle, and you can slowly work your way up till you're almost like this, and you have to do squats. That was rather challenging for Morgan, but they worked really hard, and they'd tap her knee to get her to, activate. We had talked earlier about the constant tapping of
Right.
Morgan,
Yeah.
and that was not good.
Trigger.
It was a trigger. It was a huge trigger for her agitation. However, the new physical therapists were very kind and maybe would try a rub. Sometimes they do some stim, things like that, to activate those muscles without causing her the poking agitation. But they could set the resistance. So at 0 resistance, I remember in the beginning, she had no resistance. She's laying flat, and we couldn't hardly do any squats without them helping her do it. That evolved from her doing nothing to her activating the muscle, maybe not being able to do the motion, but you could feel her muscles activating, to they're activating, and now she's pushing herself up and down a little bit, to now she's really doing it well.
Right.
But this all came with a lot of time.
Let's say I don't want to call them milestones, but these thresholds that you're needing to meet they got to start so minuscule.
They
and
are.
then every time.
I made mention, in her Caring Bridge post, that we're retraining a baby. It's like having a new baby. And we'd meet people, who would think, oh, well, where they come visit her. Well, I thought she was doing this. Well, yes, she is, but it's on this scale.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to grow it to this scale or bigger. And so that was always tough, because it was almost like we'd see the disappointment in people's faces at what their expectations were versus what the reality is.
Right.
Even though our reality was totally different, because she made this little step and this little step, and those little steps still equate to something big.
Yep.
But my mind instantly, and I did it too, Tom would call and say, oh, Morgan did this today, and I'm picturing full-scale normal child, and that's not it.
Right.
So that always was always hard to see people who weren't there and weren't associated with the therapy world and with these higher expectations. And then for us, when we saw the disappointment on their face, and we're like, no, this isn't a disappointment. This is a beautiful thing. But, you know, perception is reality.
Right. It can get disheartening, but it's also, I think it's good for you to see the progress too. And to defend the progress, it's got to open your eyes and make you feel, it's this small, but it's better than we were here.
Right.
We're on our way to here. So,
Right. And that was hard. I always felt like we were always defending and explaining and explaining and explaining. And through no fault of anybody else's, because
us peons don't know.
this isn't anybody else's reality. This
Right.
is our reality, and our reality sucked. I mean, let's just be honest. It sucked.
Yeah.
We're fighting to stay there. We're fighting through therapies. Tom and I, both of us should hold therapy degrees at this point because I know so much about therapy right now and neurological injuries that maybe someday I can open a rehab center for people like Morgan.
Large
But
goals.
Large goals.
Yep. So, the brain's healing.
Yes.
We very briefly touched on what's called storming lots of episodes ago. So,
yeah.
what is brainstorming in
So-
a TBI?
I'm still a little confused on the whole storming thing, but as the brain is healing and it's trying to do new things, it's like you plug in a cheap extension cord, and plug your blow dryer into it. And that cheap cord, when you're running the blow dryer on full tilt, is going to get really hot, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of what her brain was doing. She's trying to do these things, and her brain is working so hard to facilitate it and to facilitate these movements that her brain's just going to circuit overload, right? But then with that comes agitation. It comes in many forms, like fevers. It comes in agitation. It comes in restlessness, not sleeping, and you can just tell there's something not right in the neurological space. And, like she'd get the sweats really bad. But these episodes usually came after we'd have like some sort of a breakthrough, or a breakthrough was coming. Something new that was going to be transpiring here pretty soon. So, even to this day, Morgan still has really bad agitation days, but they're always followed by something new is starting to evolve out of it. And during this whole stuff, her brain is healing. I think her brain now is healed, but the neurons are still trying to reroute and regrow for new things. Every action she does, every new thing that she's doing is because a neuron has rerouted or made a new connection to allow her to do these. So the brain is a pretty fascinating thing. I wish I had paid better attention in science class. So for all the kids out there who say, oh, why do I need science? This is why. But she'd also have at times a lot of sensitivity, light, sounds, loud noises, even certain people, like certain voices would just cause an agitation in her. And you just never knew when it was coming.
Without naming names, who agitated her?
Without naming names.
Or if they don't care, you can name names.
Well, I know there was one therapist that...
Oh, the one that you didn't get along with that well. Okay.
Yeah, that one agitated her really bad.
Probably the neuro doc.
Yeah, the neuro
From
doc.
trauma. Yeah.
Yes. We joke about that doctor And we're like, Morgan, someday, girl, you're going to walk into that office and you're going to prove him wrong
Yeah, good.
that you are not a textbook,
It,
you know.
she's already proven that, but
And it's just, yeah. I, uh, I, w- I, I wish we could reach millions of people to say a brain injury is not a death sentence if everybody gets out of the textbook.
yeah.
And we had to fight to get out of the textbook. We had to fight to stay. Everything has been a fight, everything. And it just, oh, it was tough.
Yeah.
Occasionally they do med changes based on different brain things, like if she was really groggy, if she was if she was groggy or she was very hyper, things like that. Like one of the medications that we found that's been very helpful was Ritalin. You give Ritalin to ADHD people to help calm them down, but in brain injury world, it wakes their brain up. So in order to kind of help clear the grogginess every day, she'd get Ritalin first thing in the morning to kind of wake up the brain and say good morning. And that really helped. Not all medication changes are created equal. Definitely not. There were some medications that when they'd change them, it affected her sleep patterns. It affected her abilities. Like some of them just, dampened her abilities. Even therapy, things she had been doing, she now can't do because this medication's just like put her in a daze. You know, I know one of the medications they added to her regimen. We had finally got her to start sleeping at night.
I know that after the big mass service with Deacon Jack,
Yeah,
she had finally slept 11 hours.
11
and
hours was
that
her.
was huge.
That was huge.
Yep.
Because prior to that, she was sleeping like 2 or 3 at a time. Over the course of the night, she'd have like 3 or 4 little bouts of sleep. To Deacon Jack comes, and now she slept 11 hours that first night. Then it went on to now she's sleeping 6 or 7 at a time, which was great. Yeah, especially for Dad and I, who were maybe getting 3 to 4 every night and an occasional snooze. I'd sleep through church sometime. You're just exhausted and you're just struggling. I should own stock in a coffee company at this point because I drink so much coffee. Oh, but and then when you'd have these new med changes, sometimes it had really bad adverse effects to where Morgan might have to spend the day in bed. Or if she was sick and she'd have to spend the day in bed. The downside to her spending any days in bed for being sick was it take 3 to recover for every 1 day in bed. So it would take us about the 3 days to get her back to where she was prior.
You're talking like milestones,
Yeah.
like working with therapy and
Yeah.
stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So
It
she
was
regressed a little bit.
she just a little, but she just and muscle fatigue would always seem to like just really come back fast. You spend a day in bed and it's like she lost all the muscle strength she just had not too long before that. So that really became a struggle. But this was our life. This was the therapy. They worked and worked and worked tirelessly, and repetitive motions. That's all the things. You just keep doing the same things, and you add a few other things into it. And one day they took her into the little therapy kitchen, and they put some pudding mix. They'd open it and have Morgan try and pour it in. And then they'd give her some milk and she'd have to pour it in, and they'd put a whisk in her other hand and they'd help her stir it and stuff. And Morgan made pudding, of course, chocolate, and then she got to eat it when she was done. But then they were working on bringing her hand to her mouth to feed herself. So periodically, even since the rehab center, she's been able to periodically bring her hand to her mouth and feed herself. But you have to find them fine moments when the spasticity isn't kicking in to hinder that. So that definitely was challenging, but those were beautiful moments.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
huge.
she can do it. So now, how do we help her facilitate doing it on the daily?
Right.
You know, so we're progressing along. Somewhere in October, I don't know, mid-October, I think it was. You know, my cousin and my cousins and family threw a benefit
Okay.
for Morgan. So many people donated stuff for the silent auction and food, and I think there was a raffle for a gun. It was really wonderful. So we had decided, Tom and I had decided that he would go to the benefit and I would just stay with Morgan. And everyone was insisting that both of us be there. You know, that we needed a break. It would be okay to come home, do the benefit. Even our Lincoln family was, you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody worked on us pretty hard. And our friends and family, our Lincoln family, all signed up for a shift to sit with Morgan so she wouldn't be alone. And she was with people that she knew.
Okay.
And they covered, like, I had to leave that afternoon to get back in time for the start of the benefit. And they covered until the night nurse. And then our favorite night nurse who just spoiled Morgan and would sit in the room with her and stuff. You know, she made sure she was on that night. And so our friends, they came. Elizabeth and Mike, they were so funny. Elizabeth's like, Morgan, I'm going to feed Morgan. It's okay. And Mike's like, well, let me help. And, you know, it was just adorable watching those two. And Elizabeth was just so sweet to Miss Morgie, you know, and she just had this like super soft, sweet, loving voice. And Morgan really adored her. And so the next day when I came back, you know, they're like, oh, that was a little challenging feeding her, but we got through it, you know. And it was funny because there wasn't really staff to come and feed Morgan. And yeah, there was quite a staff shortage, as with any facility, you know, and we had just done it for so long that we told them they didn't have to do it. So on this occasion, when we're both gone, it was like, oh, who's going to feed Morgan?
Right.
That Morgan's going to trust and let him do it. So thank goodness for Elizabeth and Mike and Mary. They all came, everybody came and took a little time with Morgan to watch her and stayed until the nurse came. And then the nurse had her through the night. And so, of course, both of us then were able to come home for the benefit. And boy, the outpouring of love was just, it was pretty amazing, you know, because we feel so alone. Even though there's comments on Caring Bridge and we're getting phone calls and messages, you're still isolated and alone. And so I spent so much time crying at the benefit because everybody was just so kind, so super kind, and hugs and well wishes, and people wrote beautiful notes to Morgan and put them in this little box, keepsake box for us, and just it was wonderful. And then Tom and I had to get up and say thank you and give a speech, and oof. I'm fine at public speaking, but that one was a tough one because we're an emotional nightmare.
Right.
Like, I'm afraid at that point. I mean, I was afraid to open my mouth on anything because, you know, the emotions were running so high and you just didn't know what was coming out. If it was going to be a happy thought or a sad thought, if I was going to be bawling or hollering or, you know, and same with Tom because you're just grasping to anything that you can grasp on. And so that was hard. It was hard to get up and give our little speech, but boy, we looked out at all the faces out there and just you could just see all the kindness and the caring and compassion. And so we were so thankful, but we were so blessed. We were just so blessed that all these people thought enough of us and of Morgan to come out and support us, help us, you know, to do this. It was, wow, it's very humbling. It was very humbling.
The outpouring of support.
Yeah. Yeah, because we had felt so alone, even though we knew we weren't alone.
Right.
You know, we knew we weren't alone, but you feel so alone and lonely, you know? It was a long ways away and we were lonely. So it's okay. It was beautiful, but it got over and hopped in the car and burned right back. I couldn't be away from her that long.
No,
I couldn't.
it's rough.
I still struggle. I struggle with that. You know, she's so funny because when we're at the rehab hospital, if I would get upset about something or someone and I'm on the phone to Tom and I'm crying and talking and I'd glance over at her and she'd have a very sad face. You know, and at this point she couldn't cry. There's something with her tear ducts or whatever that she couldn't cry, but the facial expression said, I'm crying,
Yeah.
even though the tears aren't running, you know? And that was difficult. It was hard. So, yeah. So then we got through the benefit and we were very grateful and very blessed for everybody who contributed or supported us. You know, I go back every now and then and read through those notes, and I go back through and read through the comments on Caring Bridge.
Whenever you want a good cry.
I do.
Yeah.
And it's still very humbling.
Oh, it's
very
healthy.
humbling. And but then comes Morgan's birthday.
First one.
First one since the accident. That sucked. I guess part of me always thought that she would be back to normal by her birthday and we'd be going out and celebrating and doing fun stuff, and she's turning 20 and instead we're celebrating at the hospital, at the rehab center with our friends and some of our family, you know, had come and we're eating cake in the cafeteria. It's just not what you envision for your child, you know. But we did it up, party hats and little party noise favors and, you know, lots of little birthday gifts. Bob and Mary gave her a sloth.
Okay.
And I tell you what, that sloth is still with her. You know, Morgan's moving at a sloth pace, at a turtle's pace.
Yeah.
You know, her room is decorated with turtles and little Sid the sloth and some butterflies and, you know, she's going to spread her wings. But so that was pretty tough. But, you know, people brought her gifts and we helped her open them, and smirks were getting bigger, working more into smiles and stuff. So, you know, we just counted our blessings that she was still with us for her birthday. So, you know, it could have so easily gone the other way.
Yeah.
You know, and then here comes Thanksgiving. And it's like, oh, you know, we have all the other kids at home yet. And So we, Tom and I worked really hard, really, really hard to facilitate some sort of normalcy in that. So he would come down with the kids, and my parents come and cooked us a big turkey dinner, and we once again ate it at the hospital. But you know what? It's okay. Just a new normal.
Season of life.
Season of life.
Yeah.
Everything for us has become a new normal. I long for the days before, but those will never come back. And that's my hard pill to swallow. But we had a beautiful Thanksgiving. We had fun. We just spent time there. I really dreaded Christmas. I dreaded Christmas. So once Thanksgiving's done, I'm trying to shop for the other kids, be at the rehab center, still trading off with Tom. We've got Christmas programs. We've got all these things coming up, and unfortunately the kids knew that only one or the other would be there, so that was hard. And then Christmas came, and Christmas was way different. You're celebrating in a family room, or in a waiting area of a rehab center. You bring in the food, you eat, you let the kids open their gifts. This is not how Christmas was supposed to be, but this was our Christmas. So I just thought, what the heck? It is what it is. And, my parents came down and the kids were all there, and we had a good week together because the kids stayed for the whole week, and it was wonderful. we bought the triplets hoverboards that year for Christmas.
Oh boy.
And of course, we're at the rehab hospital, lots of long hallways, and so they're cruising all over up and down the hallways on their hoverboard, which in hindsight, that probably wasn't the smartest thing. We're in a brain rehab center, and they're riding hoverboards with no helmets on. So, that might not have been the best thing to do, but
Wasn't a good look.
and then of course my dad decides he's going to try it and stuff. So he's off hoverboarding, and it's like, oh Lord, thank God nobody got hurt. That was,
That's
yeah, it was funny. And it was, it was good. It was good. You make lemonade out of lemons, and that's how we celebrated Christmas that year. It really sucked. I prayed an awful lot for Christmas miracles. I still pray for miracles.
It's your job.
I just keep hoping that maybe one day I'll wake up and Morgan will be sitting there at the edge of my bed saying, "Hey, Mom." She gets her miracle and she stands up and walks and talks, but all in God's time, right?
That's right.
So, yeah, Christmas, it was definitely for a busy fall, busy holidays, and a whole bunch of new firsts, or new normal. Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. We love hearing from you guys, so keep the comments and the questions coming for us.
Yes. Love the questions. Please subscribe. Go to www.givemorgan.org or visit me at my real estate website, realtorcraigbertrand.com. And we always want your questions, comments, like, and share wherever you listen or watch.
Thank you.
Thank you.